Thanks, Ellie, and thank you to the organisers of GapSummit. It's fantastic to be here today, and I'm glad she actually put up a photo because yesterday I had a beard, and I figured if I didn't shave, then no one would recognise me. So that picture obviously wasn't very well liked. No, it's back on. So we have hope. So as I look around the room, I ask people, what is this meeting about? Obviously, we have at AstraZeneca MedImmune have supported the prior conference, and we also going to be supporting the future one that's going to be based in the United States. But as I look around the room here today, I'm wondering, who are you all? You are the leaders of tomorrow. Sorry, you're leader of yesterday, by the way. But you're all the leaders of...
born after 1970.
But you're all the leaders of tomorrow. So as I look around, I'm wondering, where will you all be in 30 to 40 years' time? Where do you think you will be besides holding a cell phone? You won't need to have a cell phone.
I'm tweeting you.
I'm tweeting me. Yeah. But seriously, in 40 years' time, sorry, what's your name? Sanjina, beautiful name. Where will you be in 40 years' time? Where do you think you'll be?
Hopefully in the pharmaceutical industry.
Interesting. Will the pharmaceutical industry still be around in 40 years' time? What type of pharmaceutical industry will be around in 40 years' time? You look like a Nobel laureate, yes. So where will you be in 40 years' time?
I'm not sure. Working in government somewhere.
Working in government. Interesting. Gentleman there, staring directly at me. Where will you be in 40 years' time?
It's hard to say. Maybe academia?
Really interesting. Do most of you know where you want to be? Can anyone put their hands up if they know where they want to be in the future? Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Couple of the front row guys, right? Yes, please. Gentleman in the bright pants. I couldn't catch your name, so I had to call you out there. Sorry. Dominic. Yeah. Yes, please. What do you see as your future?
I want to be a leader of a company and fulfill my dream and like my vision in the medtech or biotech area, because that's what motivates me. That's what I'm striving for.
I love that answer. Not that any other answers were bad, but it's good to have a sense or an idea of where you want to go. And when I was in your shoes many years ago, I may look young relative. My wife tells me when I shaved, I look like a 12-year-old, but I'm actually much older. But when I was your age, sitting, in this same hall, I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I think having an idea of where your direction you want to go is very important. And I think as part of today's talk, it's about careers and change. Now, who here has had more than one career already? Hands up. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Who's had more than 2 careers? Oh, two. Oh, wow, this guy's going like this. Who's had more than 5 careers? Anyone? Okay. Now, as you go through, when not the people from yesterday, but but I grew up in the 1970s, and back then it was very unusual to have multiple careers. I mean, ask your parents or your grandparents, and I think the time I grew up, it was, it's a very simple world, and maybe Australia was a simple place. It was part of the Commonwealth, right? But maybe it was just a simpler way of life, but we didn't expect to have multiple changes in our careers. But at the same time, who would have known what this world would have looked like in 2016? I would not have known that we would have had so much technology. I would not have known that the world would have changed so much. I would not have known as a 5-year-old that I would be living in the United States, married to an American woman, right? Those things weren't fathomable for me. So I think for Dominic, it's actually quite impressive in some ways that he has an idea of where he wants to go. And I think at this time in my career, I didn't, but I do now, right? And it's exactly the same vision that Dominic has. I too want to run a company. I too want to be that leader. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm halfway through my professional career, halfway through. Dominic's at the start. These people here, they're the oldies, right? They're at the end of their, no, I'm only joking, right? Sorry, this guy's at the end of his career, right? So there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum. So, but as you go through your career, you have to manage it. So the key takeaway is, how do you manage your career? And the world around us keeps on changing. When I was growing up, the advice I got at high school, and I don't know what advice you got, but my advice was learn Japanese. Here I am in Australia, sitting by my desk, teacher comes, learn Japanese. And I go, why? He goes, everything is going to be run by the Japanese, right? Back in the 80s, the Japanese were just dominating the world. It was post-Wall Street crisis. Today, no one's telling anyone to really learn Japanese as a language, except maybe Japanese parents. But the point here is the world has evolved and changed. And knowing where you're at that time point and knowing how it changes is very important. Now, back then, being of Chinese origin, no one was telling me to learn Chinese, right? Even though I was of Chinese origin. Now, I learned Chinese through osmosis from my parents, a type of dialect which no one understands except if you're in a Chinese restaurant. But it really serves no purpose from a business perspective. But if my parents then had said, learn Chinese, Mandarin, it would have made a lot of sense. And I could be working in China, I could be running all these businesses, as Dominic has said. I could be far ahead of the curve of my dream. But I did not know that. So as you look at making your career choices, know how the world's going to evolve. There are many things you have to sort of consider as you go through your, the next few years. And one is, do you know where you want to go like Dominic? Do you know how the world's going to change? Like Sanjeev just said, the pharma industry. I mean, the pharma industry 40 years ago looked very different from it does today. And so what will that future, academia, that was mentioned, what will academia look like in 40 years' time? Now, academia really hasn't changed, so you're in a good spot, so don't worry. Cambridge will still be Cambridge, Oxford will still be Oxford, the University of Sydney will still be there. So the point is academia may have a different perspective, but as you look at bigger changes and bigger bets, it will involve risk. The guy that was going like this up the back, he's obviously had a couple of careers, but each career involved change. And how risky were those changes?
So when you say careers, we're talking 1.5 years switching from cancer research to business development and then back to...
Were you scared when you made that move to business development?
No.
Why not?
Because it was an exciting opportunity and it was part of starting.
Exciting, okay.
I thought the worst thing that happened in Denmark was that I would be unemployed and then I would earn more than I did.
Yeah, all right. A career opportunity in unemployment. I like it. It's good thinking. I got to go to Denmark. It sounds like a good business opportunity there. So as part of today's talk then from my side is to share a bit of my journey. I'm not your typical person in, I say pharma or biopharma, whatever you want to call it. I've had more careers than I want to count. I'm only halfway through. And for me, I had to, like Dominic, get that sense of where I wanted to go. And I have to be careful what I say because the head of all HR at AstraZeneca is sitting here. So anything I may say may get me fired. And so don't make me look bad. Make me look good in front of her because she's the big boss, right? Okay, all right.
That's why you're calling me out.
That's right. Otherwise I'll get in a lot of trouble. So I had some initial slides, but I think we'll skip through these. But you really are the leaders. And I bet everyone in this room will think of change if you haven't already at some point in your life, every single person here, because I think about it all the time. Let's go to here. Okay, so I'm here now in front of you in 2016. And I mentioned I was halfway through my professional life, but the other important thing, and who's got when I say family, has anyone got married? Has anyone married, got kids, all got kids, etc. in the audience? Is any? But not. Oh, yeah. Okay. Some of the front row do count. But anyone? Okay. A couple, 2, 3. Yeah, about 5% of the audience. So for me, having a family was the biggest change in my life, and in a very good way, right? When I was in medicine, I worked 6 days a week, 24 hours, because I worked at a public hospital plus a private hospital, and I had a very different goal at the time. It was all about learning. Plus in Australia, you get overtime, right? Not like the United States, so you get paid time and a half or double time. So it was a very lucrative sort of profession as well. And so for me, I could not have had a family. I didn't even have a girlfriend. I did not have a partner. I mean, I was just so busy that I was very focused. So I could not have done that at that point in time. When I was at McKinsey, we got sent away to all parts of the world. We'd be sent for a project for 3 months here, 3 months there, and you'd be expected to work 25 hours a day. Now, how's that possible? I don't know. But you expect it to, you'll probably have, that's probably like a McKinsey consultant. He looks like one, right? Are you a McKinsey consultant? Oh my God. Anyway, so you can, I don't even know the guy. You can spot him off a mile away. Comes in with a big smile, nice suit, you know. He's about to give you the pitch of how great life is at McKinsey. Anyway, 25 hours a day is what you work. Very hard to have a family. Very, very hard to have a family. And so I could not have done that during that point in time. And so I thought going into industry would be cool, right? This is where I'm going to relax on weekends. It's going to be great, all those sort of things. But making that transition was very hard for me. I actually worked harder than I ever had. And HR actually had to come to me for those in the HR functions. And they pulled me aside one day and they said, look, we're going to have a talk to you. And I said, what's wrong? Am I doing a good job? And they said, oh, you're doing a pretty good job. The issue is you can't sleep in the office. I was sleeping in the office the first 6 months of my job. And so I'd walk out, right, at 6 a.m. and try to get out. People would be coming in the office, was wondering why this guy's walking out. I lived across the road, so I'd go back, have a shower, then I'd come back at 7. And so HR said, you just can't do that. We don't do that in industry. So it took time for me to get used to that change. And so I think with this, not working on weekends, not working between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. made a big difference. It gave me a bit of a social life. So at that point, I would just stay up all night and go out. No, I didn't do that either. But the thing is, I was able to think about other things. And as you manage your career, family is really important. I mean, there is nothing more meaningful to me than my family. And I'll share some more about them later on, but it's completely transformed the way I think about, you know, how I manage my career. So not only do you have to have a sense of where you want to go like Dominic, not only do you have to know how the world's going to change, whether it's academia or whether it's staying unemployed in Denmark, you have to know how your personal circumstances will change. And for me, having a family was the biggest difference in my life. It really meant that I had to think about other things. As I think of changing jobs, I can't really say that because he's listening, but if I ever think of changing jobs, then my family would be the ultimate decision maker, right? I could be offered the CEO of a great company, but I would not take it if my wife said no, right? Because as all men, well, you all get to know this. He knows it because he's lost all his hair and he's grey, but my wife is the boss, basically, and so I've learned that lesson. But seriously, family is absolutely important. So knowing your personal circumstances, I'm a quarter of the way through. So how did I come up with a quarter? Because I have 3 kids, they're 3, 5, and 8. They're driving me crazy, and I know that when they become teenagers, it's going to drive me crazy again. So that's the 50% mark. And then they're going to be adults, and then I'm going to worry the hell out about them, and then they're going to give me grandkids, right? So that's my 25% life cycle of my personal life, and that's why I think I'm a quarter of the way through. So know your personal circumstances as well. So I've had most careers than most, and I think I've alluded to some of these, but there are schematic themes to each of these. So I don't know, is anyone in the room from the medical doctor or there's a couple of medics always, right? You know, good, about 6% of the audience, right? So we're getting a bit of a tally here. So, you know, for medicine, you know, it was a fantastic experience, and I'll share more of the reasons, you know, why I did that, but it's a unique opportunity for, are you actually practicing physician? No, still in, okay, wait till you get there. Your hair will, you know, go even higher. It's gonna be, and then you'll lose it. All right, you'll lose it for sure. But it will be a fantastic experience. It'll be, you know, having someone share their most intimate sort of thoughts, what's happening with them, and then you coming up with a way of helping them solve that and treat them is just an unbelievable emotional experience that for those that have experienced, a very privileged opportunity. So I'm very fortunate to have had that experience. And that's been the foundation of my professional career. And I didn't actually want to be a doctor to start off, and I'll give that reason why later. But any lawyers in the room or teachers? Okay, that doesn't seem, okay. That's how I would have started my career, so I probably wouldn't be giving this talk at the moment. So it would have been a very different type of presentation. But your foundational career is very important. I imagine many of you as scientists, PhDs, a couple of medics in the room as well. But that's the foundation, because you've already made that choice. And it's the basis of how the rest of your career goes. You've made a defining point, and that is where people will judge you. But how you evolve it is critical now to the rest of your career. So I actually ended up joining management consultancy like the guy in the back, and obviously he's still there. I'm not. But for me, it was a fantastic experience. But for me, it was a great learning experience, and I'll go a bit more on why I made the decision and what sort of benefits I got from that. But really, it was like a I'll tell you a secret. Don't listen. Don't let him. Can you close your? It's like a paid experience. You get to learn about other companies. You get to work with CEOs. It's just like non-job training, and they pay you. It's amazing. Everything's paid for. It's just an unbelievable experience and exposure you get. And I don't mean to undermine what really the true McKinsey experience is like, and sort of some part of it's semi-joking, but it really is unbelievable training. If you don't know what you want to do, if you're like Dominic, you're fine. If you're like me, who has no idea what I really want to do, getting that general exposure, that general experience is critical, because I got exposed to a lot of different industries. I got to work in all parts of the world. Like many of you, I believe, from what I understand from bios, have worked in many parts of the world. How many parts of the world have you worked in? One. Okay. That's why I started off with you. How many parts of the world, sorry, have you worked in? No, the lady next to you. Yes. 3-ish? Okay. Who can top? I'm sure someone can top 3. Who's worked in 4 parts of the? Oh, yeah. There's a player. Which parts of the world have you worked in?
I'm originally coming from Turkey. I was in the US, I was in Germany, and now I'm in Switzerland.
I bet you want to be a pilot. You want to be a pilot? Oh my God! I'm like a mind reader. I haven't even met this guy. Unbelievable. He wants to be a pilot. Who else has worked in? Yes. Where have you worked?
Australia, Ecuador, Peru, Germany, and the States.
Unbelievable. And Australia was the best part. That's unbelievable, right? I didn't put words in your mouth, but this diverse experience you get working at McKinsey was fantastic for me. Because as you shape your career, you want to do it off data points. I'm sure from those 5 countries you went to, you got a sense of what different cultures are like, and is it something you want to do, keep on traveling the world? Is it something where you want to have different learning experiences? But as you get more of these data points, you'll be able to narrow down what you want to do, similar to where Dominic is today, who's more of a visionary than all of us, right? Because he knows today. I'll be curious to hear at the end how he came to such a decision. And also how you decided to get your dress taste. That will be the other key point. Okay. So the other things which I'll talk on more during the presentation is also I've had a stint in marketing, running large brands for multinational companies, running global brands, also running pipeline marketing for drugs. So a diverse range of marketing experience I've had as well. And also with management, not to underscore the point of what you're all today, because you're leaders of tomorrow. I would argue you're leaders of today, right? I don't know who came up with leaders of tomorrow. I would argue you're already leaders of today by the proxy fact you're in this room today, by the proxy fact you've had so many diverse experiences from what I understand of your bios. 100 people in this room, give or take 5%, have come from 40 different countries. And some of those have been to 5 countries, some of those have been to 4 countries already in their experience. So I would argue you're leaders of today. And I think what you're doing is, how do you shape tomorrow? It's not about whether you're a leader tomorrow. You're already leaders. It's how do you take where you are today and make a meaningful difference? Some of you already know, but others, I bet you Mr. Academia, he could change his mindset in a few years, right? Could be very different. And the point is, don't be fixed necessarily on where you want to do unless you have a clear picture. And if you don't, accumulate all those data points. And that's what I've been doing throughout my career, and now I have a fairly clear picture of what I want to do, which I'll share with you as well. And the reason I mention I'm halfway through my professional career is because I got reminded it's my 20th medical school reunion, because I'm actually organizing it from overseas. So even though I live in Australia, I'm organizing my own reunion from the United States. So it's quite bizarre, I know what you mean. But the thing is, it was an important milestone for me, because I want to go back and look at all my colleagues. I want to see how many have stayed in medicine, and I want to see how many have changed, and I want to hear about their career progression. Every time I go back, there's a cohort I speak to, and they're very happy. The 6 medics in the room, you could be very happy in your life. You're a leader of today, and you'll be you'll be the surgeon, you'll be the physician, you'll be the anaesthetist. Anyway, don't worry, surgeons are good. But anyway, the point is you could have a very stable and secure life, right, staying in that. And you don't have to. You could go and set up the next Genentech, you can set up the next MedImmune, all those sort of things as well. But alternatively, you could be very happy. And my colleagues are very happy. Now, the biggest mistake I made in some ways, what they figure and some people figure, is that by leaving medicine, I gave up one of the most secure professions. I'd argue the most secure profession in the industry. Like you're your own boss, you have your own customers. And this isn't to give a blighted view of Australia, but one of my colleagues has, and he's an obstetrician gynecologist. He has 2 houses worth $10 million each, right? And he has a vast property portfolio, and this is all from medicine. Now, I'm not saying in Australia that patients get ripped off or anything like that. That's not the point of the story. The thing is, he's in a very stable career where you earn a fixed amount and it goes up each year because you have a stable cohort of patients, and so it's a very secure type of profession. But as all of you manage yourself, how do you proactively shape it? And there will be things that are uncertain as you go through that course of your career, things that you don't expect to happen, like getting married. So back to why I made these choices. I've always wanted to make a difference. I knew I wanted to get from point A to point B. I knew I wanted to do something. It wasn't unemployment. Like when I grew up, my dream wasn't to be unemployed to make more money. But I knew I wanted to get from point A to point B. I knew I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be somebody. And that's what I argue each one of you here in this room want to make a difference too. Right? I don't know if that was your dream 40 years ago. But anyway, that was my vision. And I'm envious looking at all of you, because when I graduated from internship, that was the pinnacle of when I could have done anything, because for medical doctors, it was a reset. We're all equal, right? It doesn't matter if you're the last in med school or if you got the university medal. By the time you came interns, you're all equal. And I think as I look in the room, you've got so many years ahead of you. You can do so much, and that's why I'm envious. In some ways, I wish I could live the dream that you're having and the dream that Dominic and I am doing now, except he's 20 years earlier, right? I wish in some ways I'll be curious to see how you evolve during that time point. So just because of time, I'm going to just go through these 2 examples, which were extremes. And the first extreme is how I came to do medicine, making hard choices, or sometimes not hard choices. When I did medicine, I never wanted to be a doctor. I hated blood. I mean, it just wasn't right, But my family had fled communism. My great-grandfather and his father before that were physicians, and they're very wealthy, they're very affluent, very well respected. And so the agreement was that not the next generation, but the generation after, someone would have to do medicine. And so, lo and behold, in the time I graduated from high school, it was the first year they published results, and they did very well in Australia, and so it was publicly out, and it was based off a scoring system. And so if you got in the top 0.5%, you could get to wherever you wanted to. And so because of that, my parents, they begged me to do medicine. And I resisted that. Now, it's very hard to reject a parent. For those who are parents here, and when you ask your children to do something, they ignore you. But when they're adults, or teenagers at that time point, and ask you and beg you, they never asked. My mother has never asked me to do anything in her life. She barely speaks English. She said, "Please, can you do medicine?" And I really didn't want to do it. But at the end of the day, I was going into surgery. I'd been playing too much rugby, not very well, and so I had to get a knee reconstruction. And at that time, I got my pre-med, and my dad was like shoving pieces of paper in my face. "Sign it, change it." And like I wanted to do law or teaching. And so I signed it with the understanding that I could change my choice later on, because I could end up blaming the pre-med, or I could actually just say that if I didn't make it through surgery. But I had no regrets in doing medicine. I ended up doing medicine, ended up doing well. And the point is, where you are in your career, do well at every career you're at. Even if you don't necessarily know if it's the right choice, make sure that you're the best at that particular point in your career. And I talked a bit about McKinsey because it's the other extreme. I went from a stable, secure environment and took a risk to completely the opposite side by saying, let's go to a world of uncertainty. I don't have a profession at the end of 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know where McKinsey is going to lead me. I don't want to be a career consultant like the guy at the back, but I'm sure it's a great life. That was not my goal, to be a career consultant. It was not my goal to be counseling companies, charging them exorbitant prices, and I'm only joking, very reasonable prices, but giving them solid strategy advice. But that was not my dream. So the point is, I went from one extreme to the other. So it's possible for you to do the same as well. Now, consulting, once again, it really is, if anyone, has anyone in the room contemplating consulting, just out of curiosity? Okay, there's probably about 10%. But by the end of tomorrow, they would have brainwashed you, it'll be like 100% of you. But anyway, the point is that it's a great training ground to get exposure, to learn. And where I am today is, I know what I want to do. I wanted to, like Dominic, run a biopharmaceutical company. And the quickest way there was actually through doing line marketing. So I've had all these fantastic experiences, was very much on track. But then expect the unexpected. What happened? What happened to me? What happened? No. That was part of it. No, before, the company got bought. So unfortunately, if you have your own company, you could get bought out one day. But the dream can change. So my dream changed because we got acquired. And so I had to reset everything. Do I keep my same career and go down this path of running a company, or do I recalibrate? And so during that time, I thought of many other things to do. And I had this good 6 months to reflect. But at the end of the day, I decided this journey I've started was the one I was going to finish. So as many of you make your changes in career, know that things are going to happen, they're going to throw you off. Like getting married, I could plan for. Having kids, I did plan for. I negotiated with my wife how many kids I would have. But in many ways, getting bought by a company I didn't expect, right? And so it was definitely a change for what I'd hoped for. And so I'm continuing this dream today, and fortunately through AstraZeneca MedImmune, I've had this great last 8 years to do 4 different wonderful roles. And so I'm managing within one company. I don't know if this is the end game. I know it won't be the end game because I have aspirations beyond this, but I do know that I've been able to be looked after. And I think the next panel session is about nurturing talent. Firstly, getting you guys who are interested, or people in the room interested into industry, if that's your course and you hear from that Fiona, but actually keeping you. It's very important. The hardest thing is retaining and keeping people. So once we get you, you'll hear in the next session about the important ways of retention. I think I've shared a bit about my personal decisions, what drives me now, and so these are the love of my life. Sorry, I didn't put my wife here, but she's here too, believe me. But this is Ezzy. He was born in Thailand. So he was born while I worked for AstraZeneca in Thailand on an expat assignment, and I put him to bed every night, so he's wondering where I am. And that's Aaron, who's 5. He's sort of the quiet child in the family. I think he'll end up doing medicine. And there's my daughter, Ivy, and she's a bit crazy, to be honest. I don't know what she's going to do, but she's just full of energy and so vibrant. So you'll learn that your life will be turned upside down once you have kids, and that to me is my driving motivation in life now, to make sure they get educated and they can do well. So maybe one of the messages for the group as I wrap up is, you're going to get from A to B. You will be successful. You'll be successful. I know it now. We've had enough interactions. We've had one, but I think you'll be successful too. But you will make it from A to B. How you get there is important. Do you want to stay in medicine as the physician and the surgeon and anesthetist and make it through there the next 40 years? You'll end up with $60 million at the gross and you have a good life. Or do you want to be someone who makes changes and do something differently and take risk? It will involve risk. It will involve change. And it means that at the end of the day, you have to be willing to take that. But by being a leader, and you've already done that, for example, 5 countries, 4 countries, multiple careers, you'll have to take risk. You'll have to do that. So I think we have probably room for 1 or 2 questions. I'm just going to quickly finish up now if there are questions. If not, then we will go on to the panel session as well. So quickly, any, yes, no, questions? I know I've spoken a lot. Yes, one question. Sorry.
How do you feel? I know a lot of my peers and chatting with some people here.
Another Australian, wow.
Another Australian. They often feel like doing a PhD, you're 4 years into your research project, and then you kind of feel over-specialized. And what's your perspective on that, having jumped between many different careers?
So you're actually quite lucky, because in the United States, and this is why I always found it was weird, it's 6 years plus for a PhD. In Australia, it's 3 years plus for a PhD. So, and medicine is 6+ years. Here in the US, it's 8+. It's such a big investment of time that I think for all of you, making change is such a hard point to make because you've invested so much. But know that it's the foundation. Every job I've had, every further career choice I've had is because my foundation is medicine. And for those that have done time doing medicine or PhDs, that will be the foundation. You never truly lose it. You use it to your advantage as you go to each career point. But you have to be willing to make that change. Probably 5 people in my same year made the change to leave medicine, but they all went back. So you can always go back, but you made the change for a reason. Now, they're still not happy with their lives, although they're doing very well financially. But you know, you've invested so much time that if you do decide to make the change, think hard before you do it and be willing to do an environment where you can get all those sort of data points as well. But it is a tough decision. When I changed and left medicine, the professor of medicine, who was then the dean of medicine, who then was the vice chancellor at the university, said I was crazy, right? To have done it. You know, he said, don't do it, you're crazy. You're doing so well, you've made it through minimum time, you've got more publication peers, stay, do an MBA. But you know, I just felt right. If I didn't do it then, I wouldn't have done it. So you have to have a bit of a gut feel as well, right? Not everything will be precise. Yes, sorry. One last question, sorry, whoever, yes.
Yeah, so I did my, I did my undergrad in Canada, returned to my home country, then I come here for master. I think it is an issue faced by many students here. We are in our 20s, we are international students. We are facing a choice between having a seemingly stable career in here or other developed country versus going back to our home country to make a difference in our prime time. What would you suggest? Should we earn our network and reputation in a better country and go back, or do you think it's good to go back earlier to start make a difference?
Actually, that's a really good question because you never know the answer because it depends on the point in time. You have to be flexible. The reason I'll give this example is all the people and I don't know if anyone's of Chinese background from mainland China, but the time was everyone go to the US, do your PhD. So there was this influx of all these PhD students that went to the United States and worked in labs, and they were told they were great careers and great jobs. But for many, it wasn't. For those that stayed and later on were able to build their networks in their home country, actually are doing fantastically well. And so it's ironic, we have a couple people that I know quite well who've now gone back to China because they can make more money there and because it's financially a much better career opportunity. So I think it's about this flexibility. As you go from A to B, you can't just say it's linear, you have to have that flexibility. And the world will change. Who would know China's going to be this dominant power that, you know, many could have predicted it actually, but who would have known, right? People go, but I would argue you could have predicted that China was going to be this mega power. And so I do think you just have to be flexible. And I spoke to 300 people before I left McKinsey, right, on what to do next. 300 people. So as you go through your journey, reach out. People will always take a phone call. People want to help you, right? And you just have to be proactive. There's no use just sitting in this corner never trying to reach out to people. You have to be proactive. And that's what we respect about leaders. Leaders who reach out, who are proactive. Marina's a classic example of MedImmune, always reaching out, trying to do things. And that's an important trait of a leader. Sorry, I think my time's up because Sandy hasn't quite gone like this yet, but she's going like this. So I think that means stop, but happy to talk afterwards as well.